a start like this. I mean, it's Wichita State at midweek. That's a big start.
Wind is blowing out, as is customary this time of year, but it's blowing out strongly once again at probably 30 to 35 miles per hour straight out to left field. The wind out of the south, so it could be an interesting evening. Lane Hayworth will lead things off for Wichita State.
You see the heavy sink right on the first pitch of the game.
It's fouled away.
It's 95, back to back.
It's a friendly wind here at the ballpark last weekend here in Stillwater. It's a very unusual weekend. Brigham Young here for a Big 12 Conference Series, which Oklahoma State swept. It's 1 ball and 2 strikes to Hayworth. Thursday single game, and then because of the impending weather, which turned out to be a reality, on Saturday, doubleheader was played on Friday. So the Cowboys had Saturday and Sunday off as Reed strikes out Hayworth to start the game.
And that's the good changeup that we talked about right there. Kind of unusual to see a college pitcher pitch fastball changeup. Most of them are fastball, curveball, fastball, slider. This guy's, you're doing him a favor when you put left-hand hitters in the batting order.
First pitch misses to David Johnson. So again, Oklahoma State had Saturday, Sunday off. Josh Holliday told us yesterday that it's the first time since he's been coaching that he had a Saturday, Sunday off during the season, in which he woke up Saturday morning and he knew he wasn't playing.
Yeah.
It was a very interesting weekend, and of course that was done to get ahead of the bad weather that turned out to be a significant issue for almost all of Oklahoma on Saturday. 1 ball, 2 strikes, the count now to David Johnson. Cowboys have won 5 in a row. Boy, an offense was on display over the weekend, Thursday and Friday. And Reed strikes out the first 2 hitters he faces to start the game.
And again, show that changeup early. And if they start looking for it, then the fastball is impossible to catch up to. And right now, you talk about fresh. I mean, the tee, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, this arm looks real fresh.
Jordan Rogers has a 6-game hitting streak coming in. He looks at strike 1. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. How does the unusual layover, that is gap between games, no game on the weekend, is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing for Oklahoma State, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's good this time of the year, especially as Oklahoma State has really tried to get healthy. They got so many guys that are almost back, almost 100% back. So they get 2 or 3 days to take some comfortable batting practice. And then you get a game like this. Like tonight, you get Miola back in the lineup. That's the value of playing Tuesday, because come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you want him sharp. So I think it's good, Dave. I think it's really weird not to play on a Saturday, Sunday. Really weird. But they took care of business on Thursday and Friday, so I don't think anybody will complain about having a couple days off.
2-2 to Jordan Rogers. 2 away, bases empty here in the first. Of course, for those viewing the game that aren't necessarily Big 12 baseball fans, and there are many of you out there, BYU does not play on Sundays, and so the series had to be finished before Sunday. Reed strikes out the side to start the game. We'll head to the bottom of the first in Stillwater. We're scoreless, Oklahoma State and Wichita State.
Geico makes car insurance
Today, but he'll be the designated hitter. You see him in the 5 hole, as a matter of fact. Colin Ritchie leads off. Zach Earhart was 6 for 13 with 6 RBIs in the BYU series. He hit second. Then it's Binge, Schubert, and Miola in the lineup for the first time in 6 games as a designated hitter. Then it's Brigham and Ian Doherty, who has homered 5 times in the last 8 games in the 7 hole. Ortiz at second, batting 8th, and Lane Forsythe hits 9th. At shortstop for head coach Josh Holliday. Defensively, Wichita State looks like this evening. It's Johnson, Durnan, Rogers, and Livingston in the infield. Hayworth, Johnson, and Stroh in the outfield. Beyond catching and on the mound, it's right-hander Daniel Zhang.
Now, power arm, I mean, again, they're all over the place. But when you look at strikeouts to walks, Dave, that's not good. 31 Ks and 26 walks in 27 innings. I mean, you're giving, add the hits and the walks. I mean, that's 38 opportunities that it's kind of hard to dance around that. But his ERA is, it's respectable at 5.67. But we'll see if he can control his emotions, because people don't hit much off of him. At 133, that's pretty good.
Colin Ritchie will lead things off for Oklahoma State. Looks at ball one.
I think this might be his first time leading off all year.
I think there was another game or two. I'll double check this, Tom, but I believe he did lead off in a couple of games. The lineup has been a work in progress with all the injuries for Oklahoma State, as Josh Holliday has tried to take a lineup that's fairly heavy in left-handers and put the right combinations together to protect the left-hand bats and also sort of match up the right guys in terms of just giving you the best opportunity to let guys sort of play off.
Well, I think what's happened in baseball, Dave, all around baseball, it's almost like they want to put a lineup together and assume you're already in the fourth inning, because you can't control who's leading off after the first inning anyway. So what they do is they either go with a little bit of a power guy in one hole, extra base hit guy. Very seldom do you see the speed guy sitting in the one hole trying to draw a walk and steal a base. I mean, seems like that day's gone.
I did double check. Ritchie has hit leadoff twice, the last game of the Cincinnati game and 2 weeks ago tonight against Dallas Baptist, but he hasn't done it often. And he draws a leadoff walk.
He's not a runner. I mean, he's a power guy. I mean, he's a freshman. He's got a good eye. He's a very relaxed hitter. One of those guys that it's kind of hard to refer to him as a freshman anymore.
So Zach Earhart, who had a big BYU series, in fact, he's just had a big last month and a half, 6 of 13 against BYU on Thursday and Friday, drove in 6. He was hitting 197 toward the end of March, and now he's hitting 335.
One of those players that, as a junior, came out playing his game. He was playing the small ball, showing bunting, and he's a good bunter. And I think about 10, 12 games in, he almost took the attitude that, you know what, I'm one of the more experienced players around here. I got to start putting some numbers up. And boy, I'll tell you, he had a month where he was literally on fire.
Yeah, he was hitting 186 to be exact on March the 5th. And so it's been a big uptick since. He's had some huge games. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Earhart. Had a 5-hit game against West Virginia on March 31st. 4 for 5 against Oklahoma, April 6th. Ritchie at first after drawing a leadoff walk. A 1-2 pitch coming to Earhart. And it's 2-2.
It's a 93-mile-an-hour, pretty good sinker. But I think, Dave, when you see guys like Earhart, I mean, it's one of those deals where you can almost just see the confusion start to leave his head. He's starting to figure it out, as they say. He can't afford to waste an at-bat.
Ritchie takes off a hit and run, fouled away. It stays 2-2.
I mean, he needs to do damage. And I think coming in, again, you try to stay away from saying, here's what your role is. You don't just draw it out that way. You let him play, and then it just settles in. And this guy turned down nice money to come to college. And, it's like this is the draft year, so this is the year you got to go out there and put out.
And he golfs that into the Cowboy dugout. Ricochets out. Stays 2-2.
It's one of those little guys that's not really little. I mean, he's powerful, and he's hit some home runs, and he's hit a bunch of balls that were near home runs.
Well, and he seems to be an ideal guy to put ahead or in some way around the big left-hand bats. Carson Benj, who hits third. Nolan Schubert, of course, is in a cleanup spot.
That's a good point. I mean, a couple times during that streak, they put him in a 4-hole.
Yes, they did.
You know, and again, look at the body. Well, the body doesn't tell you that. I mean, Steve Garvey hitting a 4-hole. He's a little guy. Anybody can remember who he is.
Well, he's running for office now. That's hit to third. That could be two. Johnson throws it away. Ritchie will have to stay at second, so Earhart is safe on an error. It's first and second, nobody out in the first.
Yeah, it's almost like the second baseman was playing Oppo way too much. Not really. He's in double play depth. Just a bad throw. That's semi-submarine. And for a guy that walks a bunch of people, you got to turn that double play for him.
So here's Carson Benj. Hitting with runners at first and second, nobody out. Talk about guys with a big week. Benj had a big week last week. He went 8 for 17 in the 4 games with 4 home runs and 10 RBIs.
And they got their corners in. I mean, you really think that this guy, I mean, this is one of the premier bats in the country. He's not going to bunt.
It's 2-0.
When you start swinging the bat, and against BYU, I think Oklahoma State knew that they were going to outscore them no matter what. And it carries over, especially when you got some freshness back in your legs and stuff for this Tuesday nighter. They're not going to worry about that moving runners right here.
2-1 to Benj.
This is why he's in the 3-hole.
Skies have darkened here. You might be thinking you're watching something wrong with my television set. No. Clouds have thickened. There are storms some distance from here. Shouldn't be a threat, hopefully, for the duration of the contest tonight. 3-1 to Benj. First and second, nobody out here in the first.
Now, here's the killer count right here. This is, you know, all people always talk about these power arms right now. If you're pitching 3-1, I don't care how hard you throw it. They can put it in play, especially as they sit on this fastball.
And that's the second walk issued by Zhang, and the bases are loaded with nobody out for Oklahoma State in the first.
So then you figure it out and you say, guess what, I'm not going in the middle, and then you run it out of the zone by a foot, and now you're in real trouble.
And Oklahoma State, one of the best teams in the country at drawing free passes. Cowboys in the neighborhood of plus 100 in walk differential.
You want to score? Draw a walk.
Yeah. And you think about that. You know, it's when you're in that type of situation where you're drawing a lot more walks than you're issuing, it's not really that hard to figure out. You're going to win a ton of games just because of the free passes or lack thereof in terms of what's issued by the pitching staff. In fact, entering tonight, Oklahoma State plus 101 walk differential.
And Dave, every time you say walk, people go, oh no. I mean, go to a Little League game and to hear somebody say, don't walk and throw strikes. I mean, that happens at every level. And right now, how can this guy throw 4 straight balls like that, all fastballs? Well, it happens.
1-1 to Nolan Schubert. Bases loaded, nobody out. So we keep saying that guys had big weeks and big series, et cetera, et cetera. Schubert might have trumped all of them. He was 9 for 15 last week with 3 RBIs, or rather 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 8 runs scored. So he is on a tear. And of course, Schubert missed 3 weeks after a freak injury back in late February, the last week of February at Dallas Baptist, had significant surgery. And I think surprised everyone by returning to the lineup in 3 weeks. But it looks like he's just sort of getting his timing back and getting his stroke back.
Yeah, it was like starting all over again. I mean, you get ready for a season. About 10th game, you get in the groove. Of course, he went down a little bit earlier than that, right? Wasn't quite the 10th game. But then he had to sit and literally sit out 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was the 8th game.
8th game, right when he was getting into the groove.
2-2 to Schubert. And he hammers that down the right field line. It is foul.
So what Zhang has realized, if I'm going to throw my fastball, and it's a two-seamer because it's running arm side crazy, I better come back and throw some sliders. I better throw a changeup. He's back in the count now, 2-2.
And the count's full.
There's that fastball, walking away from it, running the other way. See, that run right there, Dave, does you no good. Somebody will sit behind the plate and say, you know what? His fastball has good run on it. Yeah, but it's running into the other county. I mean, you couldn't hit that pitch right there. And you want that ball put in play.
Bases loaded, nobody out. Here's a payoff pitch, a 3-2 to Schubert, and he rips that down the right field line for extra bases. Ritchie scores. Earhart will score. Schubert headed to second. Benj over to third. It's a two-run double for Nolan Schubert, and it's 2-0 Oklahoma State in the first.
So then you throw in a 3-2 fastball right in his drop zone, and that ball didn't leave the park, but I guarantee you that ball was hit probably 110 or 115. I mean,
So here's Aiden Miola, who's DHing tonight, back in the lineup for the first time in 6 games. The first time that he suffered a hamstring injury was up at Wichita State on a cold night back on March 26th. 2 runs in, second and third, still nobody out, and the first pitch from Zhang in there for a strike.
when this guy's healthy and he's going and he gets to play 8-10 games in a row, he's a really, really valuable player.
Well, he'd been on a tear before he re-injured the hamstring. And it's 0-2 to Miola.
Well, when you go through Benj and Schubert, then to have a right-hand hitter sitting there like this guy, then you can go back to another left-hand hitter. And you see what Josh is doing with his batting order.
And that's nub foul. Miola enters the game having gone 8 of his last 19 at the plate. In his 4 previous games before he was injured, he had homered twice in that 4-game span with 9 RBIs.
And when he's going good, he's going to hit the ball to right center field. He goes gap to gap. He's not a pool monkey. You know, he's not in there swinging off his heels trying to hit it out of the yard. He's strong enough to hit the ball out the other way. And those are gifted players, but he's a junior. And this is another guy that's in his draft year. Got to keep him on the field from now till the season's over.
And Miola, a very valuable defender. He's the Cowboys' best defensive third baseman. He can play second. That's slowly hit to short. The run will score, flip to third, and they will get Schubert at third. Ben scores. It's an RBI ground out for Miola, and he'll be at first with 1 out. That's 3-0 Oklahoma State.
Well, you know, an effective defensive play, kind of weird. The last time you saw a guy pick one up on the grass and flip it sideways and get it out. I mean, of course, he got the lead runner. He had no shot at any kind of double play there, so. You're not supposed to go on the road and spot the home team 3 runs in the first inning.
Well, 3 runs on 1 hit, which is even worse.
Now, that 1 hit was smoked. I mean, that wasn't a cheapie.
But a couple of walks and an error, a very untimely error at that. Miola at first, 1 out. It's 2-0 to Brigham. You know, and this has just been a very difficult stretch for Wichita State. They've lost 7 of their last 8. They're doubling up at midweek this week. They'll play in Kansas tomorrow.
Yeah, they'll have their hands full there, too. Kansas might be the most improved team in the conference.
How about that? Swept Texas Tech over the weekend in Lawrence. 3-0 to Brigham.
They did it in all phases of the game.
That's in there. It's 3-1. You know, and Tom, you look back at Wichita State, they're doubling up at midweek this week, and then they did the same thing 3 weeks ago when they had the Cowboys on April 9th and then went to Manhattan, Kansas on April 10th. Doubled up with Oklahoma and Kansas at home the 2nd and 3rd of April. And that's into right field. That's a base hit for Brigham. Miola will head down to second. It's first and second with 1 out.
And there it is. And you know, the 3-1 count, the 2-0 count. You've got to avoid that. Two big sins in pitching. If you throw 97, 98, or 58, it doesn't matter. Avoid those counts.
Ian Doherty has homered in 5 of his last 8 games, and the wind is blowing out to left. That pitch misses. It's 1-0. Doherty's home run total is up to 7 on the year.
Well, what a nice time to get this guy going good. This completes the puzzle, 1 through 9.
And Doherty's defense at catcher has really improved as well. It's 2-0.
What he and Forsythe have done, Forsythe being the steady Eddie 300 guy that you hoped he would be, and this guy coming around after finally getting the job behind the plate. And when he got it, he was kind of banged up. Sore arm, wasn't throwing good. Now he's kind of doing it all pretty well.
It's 2-1.
And that's a ball. That ball's down and away. And hey, nobody knows that better than catchers. I mean, Ian can step out of the box right there and mumble because that was down and away. So is that.
And it's 3-1.
And here it is again. 3-1 count. I guess the thing that you just want to shout out is quit worrying about how hard you throw it. Give some thought about where you're throwing it.
And that misses. And the bases are loaded with 1 out. 3 runs already home in the inning.
And again, that ball had life. I mean, he got underneath the ball a little bit, kind of got an upward sailing action to it. You might walk in and say, hey, that's pretty good action. But if it's not a strike or if you can't control it, it's for naught. Just doesn't do you any good.
So Zhang has walked 3. He was also hindered by a throwing error by David Johnson, the third baseman, that added fuel to this rally. Dolan Schubert had a 2-run double to put the Cowboys on the board. Oklahoma State has added another, and the bases are loaded with 1 out, and we'll have a pitching change. 1 out in the first. It's 3-0 Oklahoma State, and we'll tell you about the new Wichita State pitcher when we return. Bases are loaded with 1 out, and the new pitcher for Wichita State is right-hander Ronald Zayas.
Well, I think playing on Tuesday and Wednesday, coming off of a doubleheader Sunday, am I right? That's a lot of innings in a short period of time, and I think they'd like to have gotten more out of Zhang than 2/3 of an inning.
Actually, no doubleheader, but they had a 3-game set with Tulane.
Three-game set, so you try to, I guess you try to piece Tuesday and Wednesday together, and I mean, boy, you got to go to a 9 earned run average in the second inning to stop a rally, and the strikeouts to walks are not good, and the 7 hits in 6 innings. But I've seen guys in this series come out and give you a lifetime effort and then turn around and be guys. So Tuesday baseball can have a major effect on your ball club, Dave, and I know you like to play at home all the time, but I mean, Oklahoma State's already gone up there twice. And they're an intriguing Tuesday game.
Yeah.
I mean, they always have been a great team to play at midweek.
Well, it was interesting, though, talking to Brian Green, the first-year Wichita State coach, before the game, and to some extent, he inherited this schedule, and he said, we will not do it this way again. The 2 games at midweek, no more of that. In fact, he really wants to load his schedule up before conference play and play really as many games as is practical early in the year to make things easier once conference play begins and give your team an actual opportunity to have constructive practice. Because as he said, you play Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if you're on the road, you're traveling to a conference series, or you just need to sort of come up for air. That makes it really hard.
And I like the idea of the 4 games on the weekend. I mean, I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be fun. I mean,
oh, I would love that. I think it's the way to go.
Geez, take Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to regroup.
0-1 to Avery Ortiz. Oh, we've talked about that on some of our telecasts earlier. I would I think it would be great. I think one thing it does too, although you're going to kill me for saying this, sort of forces your hand to a pitching plan. You know, you can't mess around. You've got to figure it out.
That's right.
Are you upset with me for saying that?
No. I mean, Dave, you play 56 to get ready for conference and then NCAA tournaments. A 4-game set would make you develop 4 starters. That's all there is to it. Then your relievers know they're relievers. They know that role. You can get them ready to go like on, Thursday and Saturday and then Friday and Sunday. One thing about today's pitcher, they like to know their role. That baloney about wait until the phone rings in the bullpen, that's out the door.
Ortiz fouls that away, stays 2-2. 1 out, bases loaded. 3 runs already home here for Oklahoma State in the first, and again, just 1 away. Yeah, it would really force the hand in terms of how you put a pitching staff together, and would it not prepare teams for regional play more effectively?
Absolutely.
Because that's what you're dealing with in regional play. That's fisted foul behind us out of play. So there's really no mystery going into the regional. Hey, what's our pitching plan? What are we going to do about a doubleheader on Saturday, or on Sunday, et cetera, et cetera? It's like, well, played 4-game conference series.
And
no
we're
big
talking
deal.
about after they get the 3 weeks of middle February to the first week in March to go ahead and play some games just to get ready to play.
Yes.
I'm even against that. I think college baseball will be so smart to get away from wasting games in February.
2 balls, 2 strikes, bases loaded, 1 out, 3 runs home in the inning. Oklahoma State has benefited from 3 Wichita State walks surrendered and an error. It's 3-2 to Ortiz.
You keep surrendering the count, you're going to get beat up. That's all there is to it. And, geez, you hear it, you say it all the time. You got to throw strikes. Well, you got to eliminate fear.
And that's the 4th walk issued by Wichita State pitchers here in the first. It walks in Aiden Miola. And it's 4-0 Oklahoma State. And the base is still loaded with 1 out.
In his mind, anywhere in that pitcher's mind, he was thinking, no, I got to throw this thing over the plate. Or I better not lay it right in there. Anything that's negative that runs through your mind, it'll stick on that. It's like that little thing you spin to see how much a discount you're going to get on your next candy bar. And I mean, when that thing starts to spin, you're beat as a pitcher.
That misses to Lane Forsythe. We don't want to just pound this point into the ground, but just playing back-to-back days this time of year when your pitchers are already starting to wear down a bit, and then your team, obviously, the wear and tear of the season is coming into play both physically and mentally, and then you're sitting here and you're down 4-0 in the first. It could go even worse than that, and so how do you manage that situation? You have to think about tomorrow. You have to think about the weekend, but you also, you have a team that's been struggling, lost 7 of its last 8. You don't want them mentally to, you know what I'm saying? This is hard.
Well,
really hard.
I'm gonna give you a little solution.
Okay, help me out.
They probably, on their 30-man roster, they probably have 15 pitchers. So on the weekend, you go through 7 or 8, maybe, okay? On Monday, you got to take that 7 that don't pitch, and they have to get some instruction. They have to face hitters. You have to keep developing the rest of your pitching staff. And, I mean, most coaches, when the weekend's over, they go home, they're tired, they think about what went right, what went wrong, and then they forget about those 7 guys that didn't pitch. And Monday's critical. This guy's only got, 6 innings on the year? 7 innings? I mean, it's almost unfair to take him apart. But, I mean, how sharp can you be? Season opened up February 18th, and we're at the 1st of May, and he's got 7 innings. I mean, this guy pitched once a month.
Forsythe fouls it away.
But see, without knowing the routine, without knowing what they do on Monday. See, I've always said Monday should be JV day. The guys that don't play on the weekend, they get a JV game on Monday.
Bases loaded, 1 out, 4 runs in. Here's a 3-2 pitch to Forsythe. That misses, and that's another walk. The 5th issued by Wichita State here in the first. It's 5-0 Oklahoma State, and the Cowboys have batted around.
Ugly.
5 runs for Oklahoma State here in the first on 2 hits, an error, and those 5 walks.
And there's not a strike in sight.
A strike? Oh, I got you.
Strike. Not a strike of lightning.
So here's Richie, who started this inning by drawing a walk. He looks at strike 1.
You know, Dave, my first year in coaching on a full-time basis at Arizona State, I had to run the JV games on Mondays and Thursdays. And I could end up with one of the best players in the country playing for me that may have had a bad weekend, 1 for 15. And all of a sudden you got that guy playing for you in a JV game on Monday. And I'm thinking, Coach, you already got my lineup. You just sent me over a guy you want in the lineup. I got to throw my lineup card away, so to throw it away. Okay, so you put him in there, and uh-oh.
That's high in the air, into right. Stroh, fighting off the wind, makes the grab. Runner Doherty tags at third. He'll score easily. It's a sac fly for Richie. Over to third, Ortiz. It's 6-0 Oklahoma State.
I thought he got it out of here when he got it. But when you have that JV thing, I mean, it was easy to know you were getting guys ready for the varsity. That's all there was to it. 7-inning game against some junior college. That way you get a chance to see the junior college and get your guys caught up. And it was a great system. And that was like 1976. And I don't want to say that we had it better then, because we're in Arizona with the greatest weather in college baseball. But the purpose was right. It was in place.
2 out. Zach Earhart looks at ball 1. First and third. 2 out. 6 runs home in the inning. Earhart reached on a fielder's choice in the first. That was the play in which the throwing error was made by the third baseman, Johnson. That's just foul down the third base line.
And we almost lost our second baseman. It's another reason why you don't like Tuesday baseball. Can't afford to get anybody hurt tonight.
Well, think about 2 of the most significant Cowboy injuries that have occurred. Forsythe takes off from first. He's down to second, and he's in there safely. That's his 9th stolen base in as many tries. He's perfect 9 for 9. It's a 2-ball, 1-strike count, 2 out here in the first.
The pitcher completely ignored him. And it's not like you're trying to run the score up, but when a pitcher just goes to a complete wind-up from the stretch like he just did, if you don't run, you might get chewed out.
Sure.
Like you got to be on your toes. But his time to the plate right there had to be somewhere in the 1.6, 1.7 range.
3-1 to Earhart. Back to the midweek thing. Nolan Schubert suffered his injury midweeker at Dallas Baptist. Aiden Miola, his hamstring injury was at Wichita State midweeker on a Tuesday night. And by the way, that's the 6th walk issued by Wichita State here in the first, as Earhart will trot down to first, and the Cowboys have the bases loaded, 2 out. And 6 runs home in the inning.
Yeah, you almost want to reach out and help this guy. If you can just get it out, take a deep breath, and come back in the second inning, maybe he can get something on his own. But you bring a guy with 1 out in the first inning and just give him trouble on top of trouble. And
that misses to Binge.
But Dave, the way the college system is set up, and I know Coach Green doesn't like this 2 games of midweek. I wouldn't either. That's borderline suicide, pitching-wise. But when you play somebody at midweek, you got to play good people.
Binge shoots that into left. That ball's carrying back to the track, back to the wall. It's a grand slam home run for Carson Benj. A 10-run Oklahoma State first inning.
And that's why he's an exceptional college hitter. He hits that ball the other way, and he did it with just a snap of his top hand. I think he might have got a little bit wind. But boy, when he stays through the ball the other way, he really hits it far. And he's not that big a kid.
10 runs in the first for the Cowboys on 3 hits. Cowboys hit 13 home runs in the 3-game series against BYU, and their first long ball tonight's a grand slam. And Schubert lifts that into left center. The wind is pushing this back near the warning track, and it's gone. Schubert got one in the strong breeze, and it blows out to left center. Back-to-back home runs for Benj and Schubert. It's 11-0.
That ball was so high, I thought it was going to hit that airplane. Now again, this is manpower. These aren't two guys that hit home runs by accident. These two players right here, you're gonna watch for a long time.
It's 1-0 to Aiden Miola.
I think the left fielder was jumping up there hoping that somebody give him a hot dog in that alumni alley. Because that ball was way out of here. He couldn't have caught that with a... Uh-oh.
That's ripped by Miola, but right at the left fielder Hayworth, and that ends the Cowboy first. But what an eventful first inning it was. 11 runs State after 1 inning. Head coach of Wichita State, Brian Green. Previously at Washington State, New Mexico State. You know, he was so thrilled to take this job. He grew up as a college baseball fan and obviously progressed into a career in collegiate baseball. And, you know, I asked him, I said, what was better about the job than you expected? And he said, oh, the chance to put the uniform on and coach in Wichita.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the biggest challenge he has is to bring it back. I mean, in the Midwest, people would just clump Wichita State, Oral Roberts, Oklahoma State, and say, you better stay out of Oklahoma. But Wichita State was part of that, and it's slipped away. I mean, I'm not gonna put any feathers around it. It has slipped away, and for him to come back in there now, it's gonna be a challenge. It'll be the best job he's ever had if he can turn it around. Because those people in Wichita like baseball, but they are spoiled winners. That's all there is to it. Because I'm telling you, up there, they don't lose very often in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But it's been a while. It's been gone for a while.
2-1 to Derek Williams leading off the second inning for Wichita State. Yeah, Coach Brian Green was telling us how much when he had a chance to coach in X Stadium, what that meant to him. Just that really hit him first time he had the chance to do that. And you have to remember that I believe there were 3 players on his roster when he took the job.
Yeah,
3.
I don't know how that happened. That's terrible.
It's portal. That's what it is. It's 3-2 to Williams, and there are several of those former Wichita State players scattered about the Big 12. In fact, Robert Kranz, who has been Oklahoma State's best reliever, came from Wichita State. Peyton Tolley, who shut out the Cowboys here in O'Brien Stadium in late March, also was at Wichita State a year ago, and that's a line out to center, and Earhart records the first out here in the second.
Well, think about what you just said. There's a 1 and 2 starter in anybody's rotation right there.
Big time guys.
And I mean, for him to take a job and only have 3 guys on his roster. Now, I like rebuilding. I thought that was always fun, but that's overload. And you sit there in the portal, David. I mean, you're fishing. You're not going to get a bunch of sharks.
One away for Cam Durnan. You know, and he was also, I asked him, because even though Wichita State is 22-23, I think there's some school of thought that going into the year, it could have gone even worse, given the fact that, again, when he took the job, there were 3 players. And so I asked him, So did you have a real strategy in terms of, okay, we've got this messy roster situation. What's the best way to go about this? And he said, we look for strength. We look for big guys, strong guys. He said, when you're sort of reloading a program, that gives you a chance. You can add the speed later, and you can worry about the defense maybe a little bit later. But if you have strong guys, you gamble a little bit on defense. You hope you can hit for power, and you sort of take it from there. It was an interesting response.
Well, you do have to have a plan. I mean, I'll say that.
That's a 4-pitch walk to Durham with 1 out in the second.
And like we were saying earlier about your 1 and 2 hold, you want power to 1 and 2 hold, or do you want a couple on base guys? That's the head coach of a Division I college program is the general manager. He has to make those decisions, and then his recruiters go find those guys.
First pitch popped up by Mion. Ortiz fights off the wind, records the second out. And if the impression that Brian Green gave us is accurate, I'd like to think that it'll be pretty easy for people to rally around him. And again, as you said, it is a Wichita State baseball community that is used to the highest level of success. But Brian Green is so personable and such a good communicator. I would think he would have people fired up to try to help out pretty quickly. And the thing that goes with that is, in the world of NIL, there is a very obvious way for those who are passionate about Wichita State baseball to say, hey, let me help these guys out.
Yeah, and because of that tradition, that history up there, NIL is not easy. I think, again, them not having football, it might help them. And it's a big deal to try to find that kind of money, that NIL money, when football's not the number one guy in line for this guy's $1,000 or this guy's $500.
It's 3-0 to Josh Livingston with a runner at first and 2 out here in the second.
But I can tell you that with Brent Chemnitz and Gene Stevenson still in the Wichita area and totally behind Brian, they can make it happen. They know how to bring people out to the ballpark.
That's a walk to Livingston, and that's the second walk surrendered by Reed here in the second.
Now this is that 30-minute first inning right here. Because if you look at his numbers, you say, this is kind of Dom Reed's thing. Dominate and then loses it. Dominate, loses it. And it's between your ears, Dave. I mean, you gotta get off the bench during a 30-minute inning. Don't sit in there and lose your concentration, because when you score a bunch of runs in the first inning, everybody's jacking around, everybody's laughing, and then you're trying to be dead serious on the mound, and then guess what? It's 11-0. I mean, where do you go for intensity? You got to create it yourself.
Durnan at second, Livingston at first with 2 out. And it's 0-1 to Sestro. Okay, can I be honest?
Yeah.
What's happened here in the first 2 innings is making my case for 4-game conference series.
Yeah.
And no offense to anyone who's been involved in that, but it sort of is Exhibit A.
Think about it. Even if the 4th game doesn't count towards conference, you're getting another game in your conference in, so your RPI stays in your conference.
1-1 to Stroh. He rips that, but it's hooking foul down the first base line into the stands. 1-2.
That's a good hook swing right there. He went out and circled that ball and pulled it as hard as he could.
First and second, 2 out, 1-2 pitch to Stroh. It's 2-2.
And Dave, no matter how you carve it up on the schedule, okay, sometimes your conference just doesn't allow you to have a good RPI.
Sure.
And you just can't do anything about that, okay? I mean, some conferences in basketball are way better than they are in baseball. But when you're doing that, you take those non-conference games and play the best people you can. And Wichita State built their program around that idea.
$11-0 Oklahoma State over Wichita State as we head to the bottom of the second. Josh Holliday's had a good run of midweek success against Wichita State. And, of course, the Cowboys have won the first 2 games in what is a 3-game set of contests this year. 2 in Wichita and then the single game here tonight.
Yeah, kind of odd to be 12-1 on the road. I mean, that's simple math. That's 13, only 7 times at home. So I guess the 2-for-1 thing has been two in Wichita, 1 here. Probably by design. And I don't think Coach Green wants to do that anymore from what he shared with us.
So let me ask you this. And by the way, we have a new pitcher. Let's tell you first about the new Wichita State pitcher. It's right-hander Matt Wilkinson has come out of the bullpen. He's the 3rd Wichita State pitcher to work tonight. It's been a bumpy ride for the Wichita State pitchers so far as the Shockers have issued 6 walks. 3 by Zhang, 3 by Zayas in that first inning, in which Oklahoma State scored 11 runs. And there are the numbers on Wilkinson.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that 16-20 ERA is not good. The kid's only got 3 innings. I mean, that's probably just 1 bad inning. But 6 hits, 8 walks to 3 strikeouts. They got to turn that number around. Their walks to strikeouts have been not pretty.
0-1 to Brigham. Wilkinson last worked on April 14th against FAU. Gave up a run and did not get a man out. Walked 2.
And the numbers on him indicate he's a 87 to 89. He's a finesse guy.
So we were looking at that information about Josh's success against Wichita State. When it comes to midweekers, how much of that is just timing? I mean, when you catch teams, not only in terms of, okay, the team you're playing at midweek and how they're going, but what's the situation with your team at the time you play them? What have you dealt with the weekend before? Did you get your bullpen trashed on Sunday? I mean, when it comes to midweek baseball in a single game, there's a lot of timing and some degree of luck involved. I mean, would you agree, or is that a stretch?
No, there is. I mean, there is a little bit of luck. Absolutely. Injuries come into play. You got to give a guy a Tuesday off if he's limping or sore. But midweek baseball, Dave, I'll put it this way, okay? If you're in a program or you're trying to develop a program and you want to go somewhere at the end of the year, like into the NCAA tournament, you have to play good baseball at midweek. And you got to plant that seed in every one of your players' minds. They can't think, oh, I'm glad the weekend's over. Tuesday will be a cakewalk. We're playing Missouri Southern.
Right.
You know, that's not true. And a lot of times when a guy has a bad weekend, that Missouri Southern game or somebody at that level, it might give another guy a chance to find his stroke, and you might lose your job. And I think that players always have to be driven that way.
And Brigham is thrown out by Durnan to start the second.
I mean, sometimes you have to change the thought to like, oh, no, we got to play those guys on Tuesday. No, we get a chance to play those guys on Tuesday. I mean, next year, anybody that gets OU on their schedule, they're going to get a team from the SEC, the most powerful conference that ever existed on the face of the earth, the SEC. Well, you know what? If I was around here, I'd be jumping all over that. I'd get those guys at midweek. I mean, that can just do nothing but jack up that RPI.
Ian Doherty walked and scored in that 11-run first. Well, the old saying goes, you earn your regional berth in conference play on the weekend, you earn your seed in the midweek.
That's right.
And I think there is some degree of truth to that.
No question. I mean, think about it. They're 20, 21-year-olds. They get to play 4 games a week. And if you don't play every game, you're complaining about not playing every game of the week.
3-0 to Doherty.
I just think it'd be a lot more fun playing in better weather. You know, college baseball has to wake up on that.
And that's a 4-pitch, 1-out walk to Ian Doherty here in the second.
Yeah, this will make the pitching coach want to get thrown out. So he can go to the locker room and get an iced tea and not have to watch this. 'Cause how many walks is that?
That's 7.
We're in the second inning.
Did you ever do that? Did you ever go get tossed so you just could call it a day?
No.
As I say, I wouldn't think you would do that, but we all have our moments, right?
There were days when I got it that I deserved it, and when you deserve it, sometimes in the back of your mind, you can almost say, hey, guys, I think I'm going to take an exit. You got to defend your players. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Sure.
And, hey, there was a day in this region where games of this value, umpires would take control of the game, and they get upset about somebody in the dugout complaining about balls and strikes, and they hunt you. They try to find you. They try to say one more word. I mean, I'm going to go back to that deal I saw the other day with Boone getting thrown out in New York. He got thrown out in the first inning, and he didn't say a word. It was a guy sitting behind him in the stands, and he gets thrown out, and they got it on film. He didn't say another word.
That's ripped down the left field line by Ortiz, and that's gone. The third home run for Oklahoma State tonight. Number 8 for Ortiz on the season. 13-0 Oklahoma State in the second.
Well, let's just keep harping on it, all right? Give him the count to where he can go ahead and turn and burn, and that's what he did. He turns on this ball and swung about as hard as he can swing, but his back plate stayed on plane, and oh, man. Take that swing to bed tonight, kid. That's what you dream of. You might have broke that. I just hope the people stick around, you know, and go get another hot dog. Or if you're at home, come on out. There's a home run derby going on.
13-0. The Cowboys have missed an extra point, apparently. 13 runs on 5 hits.
If they can recover that here.
Sure. One and 0 to Forsythe.
Got a little sink in there.
Check and see. Last time a Cowboy scored 11 runs in an inning. That might take some time.
I'm going to go back to like 203 maybe. Nah. You know, we did it back in either 202 or 203. It's getting to be a long time ago.
Well, the last time a Cowboy scored 10 in an inning was actually earlier this year against Central Michigan. March the 3rd, put 10 on the board. They bested that by scoring 11 in the first tonight, and 2 more here in the second.
So when's the last time we scored 11?
I can't answer that. I try to have all the answers, but I don't have the answer to that one.
Well, I mean, the way you handle that computer over there, I mean, when you can't find something, it's tough. I mean, that must be real tricky.
Or maybe I'm just a little bit slow. 2-2 to Forsythe. He strikes out. There's 2 away.
Now, if there's a guy in an Oklahoma State uniform that might enjoy the rest of the night off, it should be Forsythe. I think out of, 44 games he's played or something? I mean, when he starts it, he finishes it.
Oh, he has been anchored down to the starting lineup. Started 42 of 44 games as Colin Ritchie dribbles that foul. He walked and scored in the first. His second at bat in the first, he had a sac fly. 13-0, Oklahoma State leads here in the second. Cowboys scored 11 in the first. That's a little number. That might be trouble. Nice play by the third baseman. But the throw over to first by Camden Johnson is too late, and it's an infield single for Ritchie with 2 out in the second.
I'll take that. That batting average up to 300 tonight.
Gerhard, who has scored twice. He scored twice in the first inning. Reached on a fielder's choice and walked. 2 runs here in the second on a 2-run homer by Avery Ortiz. It's 13-0. Gerhard looks at strike 1.
89. It might be his best fastball.
Gerhard pops that up. The wind pushing it out to the left fielder, Hayworth, who makes the play, and that ends the Oklahoma State second. But the Cowboys add 2. It's 13-0 Oklahoma State as we go to the third. And we're in that time of the year where a lot of information circulating, a lot of opinions about NCAA regionals, who hosts, who doesn't. Oklahoma State has just sort of continued to nudge its way up the RPI rankings, and suddenly the Cowboys are in a position where if they have a good final 3.5 weeks of the season, they could be right back here at O'Brien hosting again.
Well, I think the conference has 3 teams that have a chance to host a regional, and when you look around, the projections have, the SEC with 8 guys that could host regionals. The ACC's got 7. I think there's only one other conference that has more than 1 team that's projected. But again, from this point on, the best thing about your RPI is to win. But you're recognized. You're back in the top 15, and I don't know what, 2 out of the 4 polls, and your RPI is good. Strength of schedule. I mean, again, you just can't do much about that, Dave. I mean, the whole conference, other than the top 3 teams, everybody in the conference is right around 500. So that makes it hard to build on that strength of schedule.
2-1 to Camden Johnson leading off here in the third. Well, and now that scheduling happens a little more in advance, you schedule a non-conference series in March, for example, and you think, well, this is a pretty good team that's been to regionals 2 years in a row, and then they come in and suddenly, for whatever reason, they're not nearly what they were, and so your RPI doesn't benefit from that. It takes a hit. It's 3-2 to Camden Johnson, who hits in the 9-hole leading off here in the third. So that's, again, with scheduling now happening more in advance, and you're not just turning it over, scheduling, maybe 9-10 months out. Now it's much longer. Makes it tricky. And there's a strikeout, and for Reed, his 5th of the night.
Well, it's not a bad idea for people on that committee to start watching some games. See, that's that good changeup right there. You got him way ahead of it. And right now, Dom Reed, he has a chance to go out there and just work on all of his pitches with no fear. Just throw it over the plate. You can't put this game in jeopardy in any way, shape, or form. And knock off, 4 or 5 innings.
Well, this gives, Reed an opportunity to sort of push that pitch count a little bit, wouldn't it, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you can't pitch with a 13-run league, you can't pitch. I mean, there's no pressure left whatsoever in this game. This is like throwing a controlled bullpen. Guy puts a finger down, you throw it. Well, in this case, I guess they call it in on the armband.
Yeah, points well taken. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Nobody on here in the third. It's 13-0 Oklahoma State.
Then get your bullpen lined up for Friday night. And there's still a couple, really good arms in that bullpen that didn't pitch over the weekend.
Right.
But again, that happened because of all the runs they scored on the weekend.
That's to second. Nice play by Avery Ortiz, and there's 2 away.
Getting better all the time. Nothing like a 375-foot line drive home run, then come along, make a great play like this.
Enjoyable, Tom, to watch freshmen like Ortiz and Colin Ritchie and Donovan LaSalle. Of course, LaSalle was out for an extended period of time. All freshmen, just sort of watch them continue to develop and grow up. And even for some of the older players who have been coming back from injury, and Ian Doherty is someone who's battled injury for some of his career and, you know, is now the everyday catcher for the most part. It's been fun to watch these guys where they were first week of March versus where they are now. It is a huge leap.
And in this day and age, if you're going to bring in good quality freshmen like that, they got to play. If they don't play, then when the year's over, they're the first one to jump in the portal and transfer out. And I think the commitment to build your own program and have it done with your own players is it's almost a lost art right now. And there's some guys that still want to bring in freshmen. Then you got to handle them. And some programs have gotten so big, Dave, that winning is so important that good freshmen get overlooked. I mean, guys that turn down $300-400 grand to go to school. They're going to schools and sitting and not playing.
It's 3-2 to David Johnson with 2 out and the bases empty here in the third.
So maybe just be heads up in the recruiting process.
And that's the third walk issued by Reed as David Johnson reaches with 2 out.
And that's a good, heavy, 94-mile-an-hour sinker. Dave, those are hard to find. I mean, that pitch alone, that'll get you recruited. But you got to throw it in the strike zone. And I know Dom, you know, he missed some time, but he's starting to be used on a pretty regular basis.
Jordan Rogers fouls that away. David Johnson at first with 2 out, top of the third.
And again, 94, but he missed by feet, not inches. And a lot of times that's mechanical. That front shoulder just follows that front knee and it just flies wide open and you don't know where the hand is.
Two balls and a strike, 2 out. David Johnson at first. That misses.
See, hitters, they get a chance to take batting practice every day and work on their swing. Trying to keep from losing it when they feel good. You know, that feels good. I got to keep that. Pitchers don't do that.
That's line to Earhart. That ends the Wichita State third. Headed to the bottom of the third at Stillwater. Oklahoma State up 13 in the first inning of this game, and Benj is on a bench.
Yeah, he's on a good start for another week. Good for him. Stay hot.
Benj walked his first at bat in the first, then hit a grand slam on his second at bat. So he's already scored twice. Looks at strike one from Wilkinson.
And from this point on, Dave, you're playing for your draft. You're playing for seeding in the NCAA tournament. I mean, lots of reasons to come to the yard prepared. And pretty sure this is the last midweek game for Oklahoma State. So they're going to be on a take care of business on a weekend basis.
This is indeed the last midweeker. 1 ball, 2 strike to Bench. Now 9 of his last 18. 5 home runs and 14 RBIs. That's a little liner into left. Hayworth records the first out.
And see, with 2 strikes, that's not bad what he just did. I mean, if somebody was on third, he scores on that. That's a good contact with 2 strikes.
So in steps Nolan Schubert, his first at bat. He followed up, or rather his second at bat of the first, I should say. He followed up the home run by Ben. So in the first inning, he was halfway to hitting for the cycle. He hits that deep to right field, and that'll be way out of here. It's the second home run of the night for Nolan Schubert, his 12th of the year. It's 14-0 Oklahoma State.
Would it be wrong to call them the BS boys? It doesn't sound good, does it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, we'll skip that. Then back to back, those 2 guys. Just watch and see how far they can take this ball club. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. That's great launch angle.
So 1 out and a run home in this inning on the solo homer by Schubert. Cowboys have now homered 4 times. That's 17 home runs in the last 4 games. 1-1 to Miola. Now, to be honest and objective, the winds have been howling out to left field. Probably a good 30 miles per hour for all of those games. Some of those did not need the wind, as was the case with Schubert's home run, which really sort of fought the wind. It's blowing out to left. 1-2 to Miola.
Yeah, wasn't there a song about Oklahoma and the winds?
Oh, yes.
Well, guess what? It's real. I never knew what wind was until I came here. And it was like, does it ever stop? And then every now and then around 6 o'clock, it would slow down almost to nothing.
In the fall, that's the time.
Yeah, and then somebody said to me, that's what I called Stillwater. Well, that's over the scoreboard.
As Miola hammers that out to left field. For the second time tonight, the Cowboys hit back-to-back home runs. First Schubert, and now Miola. And it's 15-0 Oklahoma State. And for Aiden Miola, a solo home run to left field is his 6th of the year.
This is his first game back in 2 weeks, isn't it?
It is.
See that long it's gotten bulked up and gotten slower.
Colin Brigham singled and scored in the first, grounded out to short in the second. Brigham lifts that deep to center field, back on the warning track, and that one is gone. How about 3 in a row? Back to back to back home runs by Oklahoma State. Colin Brigham joins the parade, his 11th of the year, and Oklahoma State leads it 16-0.
Now he hit the hitting eye. He used the wind very wisely. That's a smart hitter, isn't it?
Yes.
Get it up, let the wind give me the extra 10 feet. But he hit it to the deepest part of the ballpark, so. We got like 4 more guys to get to 10 home runs, and we have 8.
It's 16-0. That's 6 home runs for Oklahoma State in 2 1/3 innings. 16-0. Doherty has been one of the hottest Cowboys. He's homered 5 times in the last 8 games. He's probably feeling left out. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I'll tell you, that's pretty impressive numbers when you look at the lineup. Geez, I wish you got 6, 10, 11, 10, 5, 10, 7, 7, 2. And now those 10s have changed. 6 home runs tonight?
6 tonight, 19 in the last 4 games. You ever seen 4 home runs in a row?
I don't know.
Well, let's see if Doherty can deliver. 1-2. It's 2-2.
Boy, you just have to wonder what's going on in the mind of the pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this poor kid, he's trying to throw strikes. He's trying to mix. He just keeps surrendering the count. Now, this is one time he's got to count. That's a good changeup.
Well, again, remember, you're thinking, well, why isn't Wichita State going more to its bullpen? Well, they play tomorrow at Kansas. So you're trying to, as you would in a conference series, trying to sort of manage and juggle your pitching plans to give yourself the best opportunity for success.
Yeah, you don't want
Doherty
to lose
strikes
2
out.
tonight. You don't want to dump 2 games tonight.
Because you've gone crazy with your bullpen in a game that is probably not winnable at this point. Down 16-0.
Yeah,
very,
you're right.
very
It's
slim
so
odds.
early in this game. I mean, it's going to be hard for those kids to play 7 or 9. I mean, I would think there's a run rule in.
I don't know that, but I would certainly assume there is. Base is empty, 2 out. Avery Ortiz hit a 2-run homer his last trip. Oklahoma State with 11 runs in the first, 2 in the second, and 3 in the third.
And see, because it is your only midweek game, you got to make sure the guys get enough at bats tonight that they stay sharp for Friday night. So if you're sitting there watching, it's like, man, why don't you take those guys out and put your second string in? I don't even know that there is a complete second string.
Right.
I mean, it's not like the old days. You know, you don't just activate guys. I mean, if you're toting 13 or 14 position players, that's the only guys you can play.
Oh, I go back to something that you shared regarding your son, Matt, 7-time Major League All-Star. Hey, you want to come out in those big games where, you know, the game's in hand, and what did he tell you? Absolutely not. You want a chance to feast on the pitchers that are struggling?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you play every day in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and if you're chasing somebody, you're getting their best arms. And it's like Matt said, no, I want to stay in. I want to hit against their downside of their bullpen.
2-2 to Ortiz.
And again, to hear that train of thought in the big leagues kind of makes sense. I mean, definitely makes sense. Like, kind of.
That's a foul tip strikeout. But Oklahoma State with 16-0 Oklahoma State. Recently, the midseason Golden Spikes watch list. 2 Big 12 players there. Brian Holiday for Oklahoma State, who's been Cowboys' second game. That is Saturday, typically starting pitcher, and has had a good run. And, you know, the hard thing now is that as we get into the month of May, and it becomes a mental and physical challenge for anybody in a role like his.
Like Brian Holiday and Garcia have been their 2 workhorses. Those 2 guys have gone over 100 pitches 3, 4, 5 times. They're going to hit a little dead arm run period right now. You know, they're probably in it. Neither guy has been as sharp the last 2 times out. So when this works, when this thing happens, you normally get it back after a couple of weeks, and then you finish strong. And
that's it.
Just put one on the tee. And
David Johnson hits it out to left field. His 7th home run of the year makes it 16-1.
He hit the scoreboard. Pretty good jolt.
So Ryan Bogus surrenders a home run to the first man he faces.
And he's a part of the little gang in the middle of their bullpen that's made the pitching thing pretty exciting. That slider was BP slider, right?
Trip.
And Ryan's velocity's come up. His last couple times out, he's been 92 and 94, somewhere in there.
Oh, it absolutely has.
As you can see, that's an easy delivery. And he's got multiple breaking balls. He'll keep you off balance.
It's 2-2. Durden strikes out, one away here in the top of the fourth.
Now that slider, he got over top of it. That had a little bit of curveball in it. Start to wonder, you know, was that on purpose? But when you get the breaking ball to develop into a 6 or 8 inch, I don't know, drop at the end, it's from finishing. Okay, it's from getting out over it instead of throwing it out there. Get on top of it and throw it down there. Hitters don't hit it. It's the flat one they hit.
Mauricio Millan hits that deep out to right field. Back to the track, back to the wall, and a leaping catch made by Carson Benj for the second out.
Kind of got turned around a little bit.
That misses to Josh Livingston. Well, you're dealing with very tricky winds. Not just the fact that it blows hard, but when a ball is hit above the grandstand area here, it does all kinds of strange things.
And you know,
and does it late, right before it comes to the ground.
What it does is the kids learn how to track the ball because it's a hitter's error. But to make the adjustment with your feet at the end when the ball comes down with that heavy run from the wind, which is what it picks up, and it makes it either run away from you or run right into you. Sometimes it takes a whole year for an outfielder to become a good outfielder in this ballpark or in any ballpark in Oklahoma.
2 out, 2 balls and a strike. It's grounded to first. Oh, and Brigham has it go under his glove, and it goes into right field. Livingston is on first with 2 out.
Yeah, I gotta believe error, huh? Yeah, just kind of one of those, hey, you put it down. Brigham's a big guy.
He is.
Get over there, backhand it. Don't get it.
Waiting for the scoring on that to see if it is indeed an error, and it is. Has been scored an error. Brigham is 6'6". 1-0 to Sestro. And pops that foul, third base side out of play. 1-1. Top of the fourth, 16-1 Oklahoma State. Cowboys scored 11 runs in the first. One ball, 2 strikes.
Well, you just got to make sure you don't let your kids get beat up. Like, there's not a whole lot he can do.
Right.
You don't want to see him get beat up to the point where you can't pull him back. And then tomorrow night, you got to go against another Big 12 team that's having a pretty darn good year. By the time Friday rolls around, they're worn down, beat up. Are they on the road this weekend? Or?
Yeah, they're at UTSA. So they'll go straight to San Antonio Thursday.
And I think they're like in second place in that league.
2 balls, 2 strikes. UTSA is in second place at 12-6, 25-18 overall. East Carolina leads the American, 14-4 and 35-8 on the season.
I think that's just one team. That league's one team, and East Carolina, they just repeatedly keep, staying in the national rankings because they get their feet off that ACC.
Sure, that's their midweek opportunity.
Yeah, that's their midweek games, and they're surrounded by them.
That's Chuck the Brigham. He steps on first, and that ends the top of the fourth. But Wichita State is on the board. A solo home run and regional College World Series play.
You go back in the 80s and 90s. I'm telling you, Dave, you would sit around, and as soon as you got done taking care of your conference games, the first question out of your mouth would be, how did Wichita State do? And really, they were in a different league, but you had to worry about that, and then you had to play that midweek game for real because they were shooting for the same thing that we were, and that's, again, to host a regional. And many a times it come down to like one or two games played during the regular season that would swing it. Now, those days, the way they judged it in those days, that's gone. They have too many numbers now to look at. They won't just say, who's the best team in that area? Is it Arkansas, Oklahoma State, or Wichita State? Now it's all by the numbers.
Well, the numbers will start the conversation.
Yes.
And then it might go from there. But yeah, it's not as I guess opinion driven, educated opinion driven as it used to be. Well, you have the data to back up what you do.
And your knowledge of basketball is off the chart. They have people that are watching the season as it goes on.
Oh, yeah.
They have an eye on teams that may lose a guy to an injury and all that kind of thing. Baseball hadn't gone there yet. I mean, the committee, they come together. They're there for a weekend. They get all the information. Numbers do all the talking. And it's, you just kind of sit there and history repeats itself. You're going to get so many out of the SEC, so many out of the ACC. Then you're going to look at the Big 12, the Pac-10. Well, there's no more Pac-10 after this year. So you're looking at, I don't know where the fourth league is going to be. Because right now, it's not the Big 10. I mean, their baseball's down.
3-1 to Lane Forsythe. It's 3-2. New pitcher for Wichita State is right-hander Jeremiah Arnett.
And his numbers are, ERA's good. ERA's good. Stuff is, he's a 88, maybe top at 90. Only get 9 innings on the year, so maybe one of those big, strong guys that now that the weather is settled in this part of the country, you're going to get more on him. But I think what Coach Green said about he'd rather have a big guy than a little guy. The pitching staff, their bodies are, they're on the big side. Now, you got to get the arms on the big side. You got to get them in the strike zone. And again, another guy coming out. First guy he faces, he walks.
And that's 8 walks surrendered by Wichita State here through 3 innings plus. Colin Ritchie fouls that away.
See, I would take that mechanism that you have in the dugout now that you can talk to your pitcher and catcher, and I would talk him through his warm-up pitches, just like I'm sitting with him in the bullpen. Because that first pitch walk, that's a concentration thing. I mean, that's as much between the ears as it is anything else the pitcher does. That's against the ABCs of pitching. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's a sin.
0-1 to Colin Ritchie. Here's something to think about. I wonder, and I don't know the answer to this. I would like to know the answer to it. Maybe I can find this out before we have the Texas Tech series on television, which will happen not this weekend, but next. Cowboys will be at Texas this weekend. So if you're on the baseball committee and you're evaluating teams who are going to make the regionals, teams that are going to host regionals, teams that, are seated wherever they may be seated in regional play, I wonder if they really think of it in terms of how teams are built for regional play, or what did they do during the season that may not translate, and that's deep by Ritchie. But on the warning track, Hayworth leaps up and makes the grab. Forsythe tags. He'll go to second. He's there with 1 out. Does that make sense? Because what goes on during the season, to be honest, is a lot different than what happens in regional play. When your bullpen gets taxed, it's multiple games in a very compressed window. I would be curious to know to what extent, if any, they look at teams and say, okay, now we're living in the regional world. Let's seed this team based on how we think they will do in regional play. I mean, does this make sense?
No, it does. See, and that's why I say that the baseball committee needs to be broken into regions, and they need to study some of these teams. Who could tell you more about Oklahoma State and why they're whatever their record is, 30-14? Why have they lost 14 games? Well, take a look at the injuries, and it's not you're not crying about it. It's a fact.
No, it's a fact.
It's a fact. It's a documented fact.
Yeah, it is.
And I would think that when you take a look at LSU right now, you look at it and go, wait a minute, is that the real LSU? Their record is like incredibly bad for them because their bar's so high. But whether to rebuild or not, I mean, it's like, look into it.
Well,
did somebody go down early that was the key to their ball club? That's what I think a committee should do. And you, as a coach, may submit in writing, something on a 20-game basis. Tell me what took place in your first 20 games and why you are who you are now.
Well, I think that type of information, I think that happens. I think so, yeah.
It always just seems like, coaches talk to each other and they defend each other, and it's hard to crack it. If you're not in it, if you're not in that little gang, you're out.
Earhart lines that to second. Could be a double play. It is. That ends the fourth. We'll head to the fifth here in Stillwater. Oklahoma State, thanks to an 11-run first to 1. Oklahoma State leads Wichita State as we move to the fifth. Here's a look at the top 25 according to D1 Baseball. Texas A&M in the one hole, and they've been, of course, Oklahoma State's best win of the non-conference against Arkansas, who's right now number 2. And then the second sheet shows Oklahoma State at number 14.
Well, in your first 10, all of them are ACC, SEC, except for two teams, Irvine and East Carolina. Now you look at the second 10, and these are all guys right here in this second 10 that could beat anybody in that first 10. There's very little difference between the two. But you're going to give the records that have lesser losses in those big leagues, they're going to get ranked higher. And here's another 5 that you want to be careful playing. You know what, though, Dave? This is time now to start taking this seriously. Because this is where the committee starts looking at it and saying, well, how about these guys? Are we going to go to the West Coast and give 3 regionals to an area of the country that some people think right now is really down?
Drew Blake takes over on the mound for Oklahoma State. Bogus worked an inning, gave up the home run. He faces Camden Johnson, who leads things off here in the top of the fifth. Drew Blake has not worked in 9 days. I would guess the longest stint for him, absent from the mound, probably in his 2 years as a prominent part of the Oklahoma State pitching staff. But circumstances dictated that. A lot of big offensive games for Oklahoma State. Cowboys, big offensive performances against Oral Roberts, and then in all 3 BYU games, and it just sort of it changes the dynamics of the pitching staff.
Yeah, you keep saving arms, and the scoreboard allows you to save arms.
It's just one of those things you can't really do anything about.
That's right.
It's just the way it goes.
You try on the last inning or two on Friday, you try to make sure that anybody that's significant. Those numbers are really kind of a little bit weird because he is so much better than a 574 earned run average. But he's only got 15 innings, so he really hasn't had a chance to get extended very often.
And that's strike 3, and there's 1 away. Drew strikes out the first man he faces, Camden Johnson.
I think that's a strikeout one way or the other. Yeah, that ball had a little curve in it. That's the breaking ball that changes planes that will strike you out. The breaking ball that runs out of your hand You throw that down and in, it's going to get hit hard.
Will Stark, a pinch hitter for Wichita State, looks at ball one.
That's 95, and
his velo's up.
Yeah, and you could see it. I mean, watch his leg hip. Watch that whip out of the backside. I mean,
yeah, I'll be honest, Tom. We've only seen one hitter plus. He looks different to me so far, Drew Blake, than he's looked maybe all year. You seeing that?
Yeah, and
it's
maybe the biggest part is like he was kind of designed to be the situational left-hander, which in some cases that's to see two hitters and then you take them out. And there's times when he's so loaded. I mean, this is a guy with high adrenaline, and he comes out and he kind of fits that role of being a late inning reliever with a lot of energy, a lot of velocity. And then all of a sudden, it's like he couldn't control the strike zone either, and gave people a lot of pitches to hit.
2 balls and 2 strikes to the pinch hitter, Will Stark.
And for him to learn to control himself, not any one emotion, just control yourself. Stuff's good. I mean, some breaking balls are really, really good. Some are just runners that, you got to locate it perfectly. Not much of a changeup.
It's grounded to third. Nice play by Ritchie. High throw, and Stark is safe.
Yeah, Ritchie's done that numerous times. I mean, it's almost like he had too much time. Nice pickup, and he just gets under it and pushes it.
I think you have to point that out in fairness to him.
Yeah, and, he needs to take the first baseman out to dinner tonight.
David Johnson fouls that back.
I think that ball was headed to the bleachers, into the stands. So that ball just didn't finish. It just kind of stayed arm side. That's when he gets around his slider. It just gets flat.
I want to point out something about his delivery that I've always found interesting. Now watch as he takes a stretch. The ball is out of the glove almost from the time he starts the windup, which is interesting.
That started about 10 years ago. Some guys started thinking that helps a pitcher stay on his back leg and stay back on the rubber so that they don't drift. See how he stands up and does that?
That's into left field, and that's a base hit. Stark down to second, first and second, one out.
It's a technique. I mean, it's spread through the baseball world. You can see that tonight on SportsCenter. That early separation out of the glove. It's designed. There was a time when it was drop, drive, and release. Tom Seaver. Then it was the 6'1" guys and above. You got to stand tall and fall to the plate. Stand up and fall. Well, fall's not a good word. So in order to stay at the balance and be tall and throw downhill, guys started that glove separation, the ball high. Honestly, hitters like to see the ball. So when you do that, and
that's what I was curious about.
And if you show the hitter the ball and he finds it, I think it makes you a lot more vulnerable to get tattooed, unless you're a 4-pitch mix guy and you can really mix.
Well, that's why I asked that, because everything, it's all about picking up the ball, right?
Yes.
So you see that, and it's just something I've been meaning to ask you, and I haven't done it until tonight.
Watch on his roll of his front shoulder here. That time he did a great job. I mean, he turned that front shoulder and hit the ball. Instead of, pitching like he's in a hurry, slide stepping, he rolled his front shoulder with his front hip. Watch this. See the roll right there? Oh, right in the middle of the plate.
Out to left center, and that's off the wall for extra bases. Stark around third, he'll score. It's an RBI double for Jordan Rogers, and it's 16-2 here in the fifth. That's an unearned run charged to Blake.
Well, he hides the ball good right there, but he throws the fastball right in the hitter's zone. You got to remember, the score is like loose as a goose. Pitching can become tougher with that much of a lead. And you might think this is kind of out of school, but you got to still throw a couple fastballs up and in. Don't let people lean out and take batting practice.
0-1 to Derek Williams, who homered his last trip in the fourth.
That 94, running in. Get in there. Don't let people get comfortable. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if it's 16-2.
That's deep to center. Earhart on his horse makes the over-the-shoulder grab. David Johnson tags at third. He scores. It's a sacrifice fly for Derek Williams, and a great catch by Zach Earhart. 2 away.
Really nice play. But again, that's a get-me-over slider, and I mean, you hit that ball good. And again.
So it's 16-3. Cam Durnan has walked and struck out. 2 runs home and a inning. So who is the best that maybe you've coached or maybe seen at hiding the ball and making it really late before the hitter gets a look at it? You can think about that. We can talk about it next half inning if you wish.
No, it always seems like the guys that did that so well for me were left-handers. And maybe it's because they're allowed to roll the shoulder and the hip more than righties. You don't have to worry about being so quick to the plate if you're a lefty.
That's hammered by Durnan, and that ball's out of here. That's a long 2-run homer for Cam Durnan. Makes it a 16-5 game here in the fifth.
Well, there's a lot of velocity, but it's a lot of home plate. I mean, you can't lose the intensity, the killer instinct. That's right in the middle of the plate.
Well, it's almost as if after the error by Ritchie, all Camden Johnson.
Well, you like guys that do things out of perfection. But again, you come into this one, it's 16-1, you're going to get 1 inning, right? Go out and take care of the 1 inning and, maybe accept yourself as being back in the mix.
We have a pitching change, top of the fifth. 16-5 Oklahoma State. We'll tell you about the new pitcher when we come back.
Geico makes car insurance easy. As easy as getting stuffed up during allergy season.
Before all the pollen, I used to stop and smell everything. The smell.
Scoring affair at 16-5 Oklahoma State. 4 runs in for Wichita State in the top of this inning, and the new pitcher is right-hander Evan O'Toole.
Now, we can say this because we've seen just about, every Oklahoma State game, and this is another guy that's been really way better effectively than his ERA. That's 7.27. I bet that's happened in 2 outings because he's been, a workhorse. He's the 13th appearance, and he's a strike thrower. Good sinker. Maybe a fringe draft. 20-round draft, Dave. It kind of pushes guys like this into their 4th year of school. I'm not sure whether he's classified as a junior or senior.
O'Toole last worked, by the way, Thursday against BYU, gave up 3 hits but did not surrender a run. Bases empty, 2 out, 4 runs home in the inning. You were talking about O'Toole. He's classified as a senior.
Well, I would think somebody's going to give this guy a chance to play professional baseball.
Have a pinch hitter for Wichita State, Logan Kresge. Will take over as the catcher. So the night's over for Mauricio Millan.
That umpire waving at you, Dave?
I missed it.
Look at him saying, hey, Dave.
It's chopped to second to Ortiz. And that ends the top of the fifth. But 4 runs for Wichita State. The 2-run homer by Cam Dern in the highlight.
Fifth. And we've already covered the spread on runs scored. I think it was 16 over and under.
6 home runs for Oklahoma State tonight, 2 for Wichita State. Jeremiah Arnett worked a scoreless inning.
That'll get him another inning.
Took over in the 4th. He'll face Benj, who had the grand slam homer in the 2nd. Benj is also flown out. He walked and scored in the 1st in his first at bat, and then hit the grand slam, his 2nd at bat of that 11-run first. 1-1.
Hey, a freshman.
Benj shoots that out to left. Boy, the wind is carrying that back to the track, and it's off the wall. Benj will try it into second with a leadoff double here in the 5th.
Yeah, he almost got another one right here. I think that's what's bringing the pro scouts to the ball games right there. His ability.
You know, it's interesting, Tom, and I don't want to speak too much to this, but I'm curious to get your opinion. How often has it been a situation for Oklahoma State recently where your top 2 hitters, both left-hand hitters, you could argue your top 2 hitters, Benj and Schubert, are both guys that hit it all over the field? That's your 3 and 4 hole hitter, and yet those guys, they hit it everywhere. Most of the time, and with good reason in this ballpark, you're going to have a pull hitter in the 3 or 4 hole because the wind usually blows out. You can pop one out without too much trouble. Speaking of popping one out, Schubert hammers that down the left field side, and it's out of here for a home run. 3rd home run of the night for Nolan Schubert.
I'm just trying to think of the last time I saw 2 hitters back to back with the talent that these 2 guys have. That's just a whole line drive home run the other way. Hit exactly the way you teach it right there. Inside of it and drive it.
2-run homer for Schubert. And what a night it's been for Nolan Schubert. He has a 2-run double, a pair of solo home runs, and now a 2-run homer. He's driven in 6.
Well, it's nice to see him healthy, I'll tell you that.
Schubert is 4 for 4 on the night. And that's ripped down the left field line into the corner for extra bases. Down to second goes the pinch hitter, Donovan LaSalle. He's at second with a double with nobody out.
And when you can hear it as loud as we're hearing it, these aren't accidents. There's no bloops. That extra day off or 2, really makes playing on Tuesday night fun.
So here's Brigham, who was part of the 3 consecutive home runs for the Cowboys back in the 3rd. 18-5 Oklahoma State. By the way, Schubert, who has the 3 home runs tonight, is now 13 of his last 19 at the plate. That's over the last 4 games with 6 home runs, 11 runs scored, 16 RBIs. That is a tear.
Yeah, and you're asking me about 2 guys that can do the things those 2 guys do. To answer that question, you got to go to the best hitters that you spent time with or saw or witnessed. And you gotta go Robin Ventura, Pete Incaviglia, and then Jeremy Burnett's, Luke Scott. Well, Luke had a crazy good senior year, but then you start thinking like, okay, so who set him up? Who were the setup guys? And they were all good guys, but not as good as these two people back to back. I mean, we worried about covering Pete, and we had Billy Smith who came in and for a while tried too hard, and then he settled in and did a great job. And sitting behind him, we had Jimmy Berrigan. The combo, Dave. I can't go there. I don't.
That's unique, isn't it?
I mean, I think it's the best two I've seen in being around here for as long as I've been around here. I mean, other than 8 or 9 years.
And Brigham rips that deep to right, and that's his second home run of the game. A 2-run homer for Brigham, and it's 20-5, Oklahoma State. And the Gap Band is worn out.
It's all right. People like that song, so wear it out. And there's no such thing as turn it down or, you're getting your BP right now. You're getting prepared to play Friday night. There's no way to tell a guy to go to the plate and make an out. It just doesn't happen. Anything like that, but.
So 4 runs home in the inning. Still nobody out. It's 20-5. That's 8 home runs for Oklahoma State tonight. It's 21 home runs for Oklahoma State in the last 4 games. And Doherty lifts that out to left. The wind will push it back, but it'll stay in the ballpark easily. And the play is made by Hayworth in left field. There's one away. Correction, Will Stark has taken over in left field. Records that first out.
Yeah, we're in the bottom of the 5th.
We've not confirmed yet regarding the 10-run rule, but probably going to assume with Wichita State playing again tomorrow that that'll be the case. Kyler Proctor will pinch hit for the Cowboys. He'll take over for Avery Ortiz.
And this is one of the freshmen you bring in with the idea that we're going to bring this guy along. Be patient. Your day will come. Don't be impatient. Start thinking about how much greener it is on the other side. I could go here and go there. Stay to your commitment. Take this last 3 or 4 innings seriously. And this guy's a pretty good player. I think it was last Tuesday night he had to start and play because of injury.
He did.
And, I mean, that's a valuable game for a freshman.
Well, Josh Holliday was pleased with how he fared. And there's 2 out here in the 5th.
That's the best fastball tonight for Arnett. See, you talk about walks. You talk about, like, good mechanics. You talk about good arms. And then you look up and you see a score like this. You go back and you track those 8 home runs, and I'll bet you that all 8 of them have been right in the middle of the plate. Not just Oklahoma State's home runs. I mean, I'm talking about Wichita State's home runs. So my point is this. Are you trying to pitch, or are you just trying to light up a radar gun?
Yeah.
And I think that's what's missing. Touch and feel doesn't exist. It's all about light that radar gun up. And, people like to sit at a ballpark and be able to see how hard was that. Oh, it's up on the scoreboard. As soon as you walk in a ballpark, where's the radar gun at? Oh, okay, it's over there. Now, at some of the big league parks, they're putting exit velocity, launch angle. I mean, they're trying to give the fan as much info as they can.
1-2 to Lane Forsythe. It almost sounds as if we spend a lot of time, you do, sort of evaluating and offering insight as to mechanics. It just seems to be so much emphasis on velocity that the art of pitching, that is locating, et cetera, just seems to kind of get lost in all of that. Or do you feel that way?
No, you're 100% right. I mean, and the people that I talk to in the baseball world, which is my world, it's the only people I really know.
It's a 2-out walk for Forsythe.
And they'll say, hey, did you see anything over the weekend? Yeah. I mean, you do see guys that didn't show up on a scouting report to be guys. You see good arms. And then all of a sudden that guy will take that info, go see him, and pass it around. Well, they say, 95, but can he pitch? That's the hardest question there is to answer, Dave. I mean, can he pitch?
Colin Ritchie fouls that away. That takes me back to probably for me still the best visiting starting performance I've ever seen here in Stillwater, and that was by Alek Manoah, West Virginia. I think it would have been 2018 perhaps. I don't know the exact year off the top of my head. And we were not doing TV that night. We were sitting with some scouts that were friends of yours. I was just sort of hanging out, trying not to say anything stupid.
Yeah.
But we had a scout next to me who turned to me in the eighth and said, take a guess as to how many full count pitches Manoah has thrown tonight. I said, not very many. And he said, how about none? To which he said, I'm out of here because by the time we draft, this kid will be gone. He's everything everyone says he is, and I'm out of here. I'm done for the night.
And again, go back and look at his history. And Randy Mazey developed him into being a closer at West Virginia. And you're talking a 6'5", 250-pound stud. I mean, thoroughbred, okay? And what he learned by being a closer was he learned how to have touch and feel. He learned how to, nail that fastball inside, to stay away from the middle. He conquered that. But what the kid wanted to do, in his heart, he wanted to be a starter. And, for Randy just to say, here, Tom, take him. He wants to be a starter. Give him a summer. Let's see if he can do it. And the kid did.
That's in shallow left, and Durnan makes the play. But Oklahoma State scores 4. The Cowboys hit 2 more home runs. 20-5 Oklahoma State. A busy week for the Shockers. They'll play tonight, then go back to Wichita and head to Lawrence to face Kansas tomorrow, and then they'll go straight from Lawrence to San Antonio for a conference series against UTSA. So this is a rough week.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a lot of travel. Holy cow. Road, home, road. Then it's conference tournament, right?
Correct.
And mix in finals. Finals have to be around the corner.
Yes, Josh Livingston leading off for Wichita State. A moment ago, you had a look at Addison Smith. He's taken over at third. Kyler Proctor was a pinch hitter and now is at second base. So the night's done for Colin Ritchie and for Avery Ortiz. 1-0 to Livingston. So this is the final midweek game for Oklahoma State. How do the dynamics of the team change once the midweekers are done?
Well, whether you like it or not, it shrinks your pitching staff down. I mean, you don't get to develop anymore. I mean, that's done. The developing is over. Now you got 9 conference games left, and this league may go right down to the last game of the year. And so you look at Oklahoma State. They go to Texas. They come home to Texas Tech. Those 2 series will be dynamic. And then you go to Houston, who, by the time you play them, they could be turning their gear in.
One away here in the 6th.
And that's on the road. But, again, it's going to be one of those finishes from 1 to 5 in the conference right now. I think there's only 2 games separate. Toole just runs the ball right by him.
First plate appearance for Braden Lukart. Pitch in there for a strike. So if that's true, let's say you have, for example, a series in conference like what Oklahoma State had this weekend, where you win 3 pretty lopsided games against BYU. Does that make you more inclined to say, hey, we're going to have to run more guys out there and maybe give them an inning apiece just to make sure guys stay sharp? Or are you really just saying, hey, we're just trimming down and we can't afford to shorten the roles of our key guys because we need them to be at their best once we get to postseason play?
Yeah.
So how do you manage all of that?
You make sure you don't get any of your key guys sore.
Well, yeah, so that would get you to go to more guys.
Yeah, when you get a 15-run spread, let some of those puppies pitch, because they may not pitch anymore. I mean, this could be the end of the season for them, because taking care of the 3 games on the weekend, their pitching staff's developed. I mean, they've developed their roles. They've set their roles.
It's funny
that's why I would play every game I could play, right down to the end.
So isn't it funky how this sort of seesaws? And when I say that, you play a lot of games early, then you have midweekers, then you have conference series, then the midweekers go away. Then you go into conference tournament and regional play where suddenly you're playing a bunch of games in a condensed situation. That's a bad throw that gets past Brigham. And down to second goes Lukehart with 1 out. That should be an error on the play. Be the 3rd for the Cowboys tonight. So that's where it gets tricky. We'll take another look at this, see what happened.
They hit it right at him, and he just comes off the bench. That old saying, it'll find you, well, it found him, and I think he just threw the ball as hard as he could. And he's another. Hey, it's fun. He hadn't played much.
Sure.
What do they say? It happens.
It does.
But finish your thought.
Yeah, so you see what I'm saying is lots of games. Midweek games, lots of games. Midweekers go away. Not very many games. Less games. Conference tournament, regional play. A ton of games, high pressure in a short amount of time. You see what I'm saying? It's like the ebb, the flow goes one direction, less games, then all of a sudden just goes crazy back the other direction. Am I making sense here? It's interesting how that goes.
Boom. Yeah, you're on the downside of the snowfall. And
so managing a pitching staff through all that has to be tricky, right?
It does. And when you get a chance, you sit down every time you get a chance and say, what if? What if we win the first 2 and lose in the regional? Then who's going to go in the 4th game? You got to do that. That's the fun of being a coach. I mean, it's like preparing yourself for every situation that comes along. And, in your mind, even like to a sweep. So if I sweep, I go 1, 2, 3. What am I going to do for the next tournament? It's a week away. Well, I got to get my relievers an inning. Can't do it. You got to worry about them getting too strong.
Darnell Parker strikes out.
Those are all thoughts that run through pitching coaches' minds. You don't want guys getting too strong. You saw what happened tonight with Drew Blake. I mean, he was loaded. 95, 96. And threw some balls with some hair on it, and they left the ballpark. And mentally, it didn't do him any good. Physically, he needed tonight. He needed to pitch tonight. That's why I'm not so sure about playing games in the fall. If they're going to take that off your 56 and to where you can only play 54, I don't know. I mean, I'd rather play anybody at midweek just to keep my bench guys strong, my down pitchers strong, than go 3 and then take 5 days off, 4 days off, 3, 4 days off.
Right.
Of course, I've told you 100 times or 1,000. This is when you play college baseball right now. All that early season baseball, you need a 30-man roster to keep from hurting kids. But who wants to play baseball at 40 degrees?
Right. Well, that's when guys get hurt.
You get them hurt, you get them sore, and everybody. You look at an arm and you say, he's only got 8 innings. What's up? He's probably sore early in the year. I just don't understand why the administrators for baseball at the NCAA level can't see that.
Well, I think part of it, though, is the the academic calendar and the manner of academics has changed. It's become more prominent as far as online courses during COVID, which opens the door for exactly what you're talking about. Headed to the bottom of the
Bring
sixth.
that topic back.
20-5, Oklahoma State leads Wichita State as we head to the bottom of the sixth. Big series coming up at Texas this weekend. Texas fresh off winning 2 of 3 at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I think right now it's like a 4-horse race, and OU's playing really good baseball. Texas went in there and took them 2 out of 3. They got playing that awkward doubleheader Sunday, and I've never seen a game like with 6 outs left. And Lightning way off, and they bang it, and the home team gets the awkward side of that score. Texas Tech from mid-season on, that's been a different ball club. Houston, they've had a rough go start to finish, and right now every conference game is going to have a bearing on maybe hosting a regional.
New pitcher for Wichita State is right-hander Ryan Garrity. He faces Zach Earhart to start things in the bottom of the sixth. Oklahoma State scored, in case you're just joining us, Oklahoma State scored 11 runs in the first. And that set the table for a big offensive night. 2-0 to Zach Earhart. Anyway, now that online academics have become more prominent and more prevalent and more practical, continue with my P words.
No, I hear you.
I would think that would assist, and the draft obviously moving back plays a huge role in that. It would open the door to what you're talking about. And that is baseball being played
and
later
Dave,
in the year.
We're on the brink of college football going to a playoff system.
Which means college football will have a different layout in December.
Exactly. I mean, they're going to be done when school's out. They're going to have to hold their football teams together for at least a month if you're any good. If you're one of the teams that gets in, because you're only going to play one football game a week. And so now all that concern about how much money is it going to cost to keep your team on campus, that used to be what they argued with us about baseball. We don't have the money to keep the baseball players on campus. That's no longer, it doesn't fit. And for what you're saying about the online courses, shoot, all you got to do if you play into July, get them graduated.
Max Knight pinch hitting.
Another one of those rookies that you get him out there and let him play as much as you can. This guy's a two-way guy. I haven't seen him pitch in a while, but he sure likes to hit. I just think it makes sense, Dave, and let players play for a month after school's out. They can relax a little bit. They can take another course.
Yeah. 1-2 tonight. Earhart started the inning with a walk.
Is college basketball around the nation, is their attendance down?
Oh, it is, yeah.
Is it?
Sure.
I just kind of wonder about that because it almost seems like we're forgetting about them, and they should get the limelight in February.
Chopped to short, could be 2, out at second and out at first.
Perfect double play ball. And I think this might be Wichita State's best arm we've seen tonight.
So here's Nolan Schubert, who has homered 3 times. 5 runs in a game, ties the school record. Several players have it. He was the last one to do it. Did it last year in early May against East Tennessee State. So he has a chance to do something that's never been done before. 4 home runs in a game. 4 for 4 tonight, 6 RBIs, 3 home runs. You think about all the guys, prominent power hitters, and some of the best that have ever played collegiate baseball. Schubert has a chance to
think
stand
about
tall.
the major leaguers.
No doubt.
How many major leaguers hit 4 home runs in a game? I think that's only been done like 5 times. We're talking about the history of baseball.
Yes. Yeah.
And as good as you are, get on that computer and find out, because I know Henry Aaron did it once, didn't he?
Oh, I would have to look.
Mickey Mantle, maybe?
Schubert trying for history here. 3 home runs so far tonight. Can he get a 4th? 2 balls and a strike.
Tell you what, that's a pretty good arm. 95 with a fastball, 83 with his changeup.
2 outs, bases empty. It's 3-1 to Schubert.
That's a pretty good miss right there.
Mentioned this after Schubert's last home run. His run is crazy. 13 of his last 19. 6 home runs, 16 RBIs in that run. 3 home runs tonight. 3-1 to Schubert. And the count's full.
And that might be the first 3-1 non-fastball thrown tonight. He takes a 3-1 slider. That's a good take. Why not sit fastball right there?
And Schubert hammers that deep to right field to the track to the wall.
Yes.
Is it gone? Waiting for the signal.
That's a home run. That ball hit the top, ricocheted off concrete, and came back in.
It is a home run. Go to the mountaintop, Nolan Schubert. He sets an Oklahoma State record with 4 home runs. And it's 21-5 Oklahoma State. You are the man, number 10.
Wow. That's a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. And he hit it as hard as you can hit it. They grab Shuby and take him to Vegas.
How about that? 4 home runs for Schubert. That one in question until the umpires finally able to come to agreement. In case you're wondering, the home run record in the NCAA for a single game, from what I found quickly here, was 6. Marshall McDougal from Florida State against Maryland, May 9th of 1999, hit 6 home runs in 6 at-bats.
Now, I'm going to tell you, that is some kind of record, okay? Go to Florida State and take a look at the ballpark.
Oh, I've been there.
The right field. It's like 270. Now, you got to hit it up over a net. It's a pretty high fence. Some of your all-time home run numbers come from Florida State.
3-1 to Donovan LaSalle.
Of course, it's a much heralded program, Florida State. When they've been down, they haven't been down for very long. And what Mike Martin did there for, God, I don't know, it seemed like for 30 years. Incredible.
And the count is full.
Yeah, you kind of shake your head like 6 home runs. I mean, geez, we just saw a guy hit 4. Now, we're only in the 6th inning. He'll get another at bat or 2 if we play 9.
And Donovan LaSalle reaches with 2 out. We've not had confirmation. I think we have to assume with Wichita State playing again tomorrow night, playing on the road, that this would be ended after 7. Cowboys up 21-5. That would certainly be my strong suspicion.
Yeah, and you hate to say that's the mercy rule. Well, no coach wants mercy. But again, at the same time, when you're down this spread right now, you got to be sitting there thinking like, I do got to play tomorrow night. I got to hold some of these kids back. Got to have somebody pitch tomorrow night. I'm sure Kansas is probably sitting there thinking, tomorrow night's going to be fun. That's a pretty good pitch. If I'm umpiring home plate, that's a strike. Home plate is going to swell at 21-5.
1-2 to Brigham.
Tell you what, that's good. I mean, that's a 93-mile-an-hour sinker away, and he fouled it off. That's better than trying to spin on it, trying to hit it out of here and striking out. I think Brugge had about 3 weeks where he struck out so much that he never felt comfortable going to the plate, but he had to play every day. And that happens. You know, sometimes you got to play due to, nobody at your position or whatever, but he fought his way through it. He's swinging the bat right now as close as he did last year. And this is a good time to get hot. This is a good time to find that swing. And he had some lower back issues, stiffness and stuff like that, quite frankly, baseball, you learn to play with that. Four home runs in one game.
How about that? 21-5, bottom of the 6th. And the count is full to Brigham. Going back on February 25th when there's Schubert, who wears number 10. See him on your screen when he was injured at DBU. Not sure anybody knew when he might be back. Had to have surgery. Brigham strikes out.
That's a good breaking ball right there.
And that ends the 6th. An ongoing parade of big-time power hitters have rolled through Stillwater. This has shined brightly. Cowboys have hit 9 home runs tonight, 22 in the last 4 games. And this is a game being played under the 10-run rule, so if Wichita State does not plate 7 runs here in the 7th, this game will be over. We have a new pitcher on the mound for Oklahoma State. It's right-hander Tommy Molsky taking over here.
Well, this is maybe the completion of the middle relievers. Tommy's been gifted. I mean, he's got 6 wins coming in anywhere from the 3rd inning to the 7th. Numbers are good. A little bit high on the walks for him. Kind of a guy that you rally around. When he goes to the mound, we win. Turn the scoreboard around several times when he comes. He's going to go anywhere from 91 to 95. Good breaking ball. Throwing both curve and slider. Change-up's a work in progress. Tommy loves to pitch. This is one of those guys that, the change of scenery was really good for him. He went through a coaching change at Penn State. Got a chance to see a different part of the country. Boy, he's really been a good addition to this pitching staff.
David Johnson rips that foul down the first base side.
He must be seeing the ball good tonight. Wichita State's had some good passes at it, too.
Oh, they have.
Good night to hit.
Oh, 0-2. And I mentioned 9 home runs tonight. I believe that's a single game O'Brate Stadium record. Cowboys with 9 tonight, 22 in the last 4 games. Now, back in the day, 22 home runs in 4 games was probably not that big of a deal, was it?
No, I think, no. I mean,
Or was it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, now, you always have one centerpiece doing most of the damage, but it's a lot of home runs.
And there's one away here in the 7th.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's Molsky's only hitter that he gets. Now, there's the changeup we were talking about. Being a work in progress, that was a good one. So you got Gabe Davis. That would complete your middle relievers. Ooh.
And Rogers is hit.
It doesn't hurt the hitter. It always hurts the catcher or the umpire. Hitters are all padded up. I mean, it's like a ricochet.
And that's been a part of the Wichita State story.
Yeah, that's one stat that I wouldn't want to be a part of. That's a good pitch. Of course, if you're going to use a tight zone now, I guess you'd use it on Oklahoma State. But
Derek Williams with the solo homer in the fourth. He has a 1-0 count with 1 out in the seventh. And barring something crazy, this will be the final half inning of the night.
And there's the changeup again. A pitch that Tommy has to develop, and a night to develop it.
Two and one.
96 down in the zone. That pitch is hard to do anything but hit a ground ball on.
That's up the middle, and that's a base hit. Down to second is Rogers. First and second, 1 out.
And there's no secret as to why he's in. You're just like, you're going to give him a little bit of work tonight. Going to have 2 days off. Then you're conditioning him to be able to pitch on 2-day rest. You don't know who you're going to work Friday night in relief, but give him a little bit of work tonight. Even at 21-5, I get it. But don't turn to just throwing strikes.
Misses to Cam Durden.
If you fool around and they bang you for a couple of runs, you just get really irritated with yourself, because this is the part of the bullpen right here that's been involved in every game when a game's on the line.
That's chopped fair down the third base line. Rogers around third. He'll score. Over to third goes David Williams. And it's a RBI double for Cam Durden at 21-6. Is it hard to pitch in this circumstance if you're used to crisis?
I think it is. I mean, it's like, this isn't the role that I've had. And I don't know when the last time he ever pitched it. He had to make sure mentally you kind of put that chip on your own shoulder, because the scoreboard doesn't give it to you. And, you know, we got a nice crowd. I mean, surprisingly, they've stuck around. Not sure, Dave, but did I see lightning above that hitting eye?
I don't know. 1-0 to Logan Kresge. I can look. It's 1-1.
Now, there's Tommy's bread and butter right there.
Yeah, you might have seen it, but it's some distance away.
Yeah.
One ball, 2 strikes.
So if somebody hits one inside the line, gets a double, then all of a sudden Tommy's like, I'm throwing all my stuff now. I mean, I'm not gonna just work on the changeup. I'm gonna throw my breaking ball. Nice job of blocking that ball.
Two balls, 2 strikes, 1 out in the 7th. And there's 2 away.
Yeah, that was virtually an unhittable slider. If you're not willing to take that pitch and hit it the other way, you're going to strike out on it.
And we will have a pitching change.
Almost a predictable pitching change, too. He gave Tommy Wolski 16 pitches. And
we'll tell you about the new pitcher when we come back. 21-6, Oklahoma State on top of the 7th.
Geico makes car insurance easy.
Say when.
As easy as loving Parmesan.
Say when.
For Oklahoma State, left-hander Ryan Muir.
Well, we're at three innings with 3 weeks left, and this is a really powerful left-handed arm. And if he's become the one-hitter left-hander out of the bullpen, it's a pretty good arm to have coming out of your bullpen. I can tell you that, because his first time out, he was 96, 97. Second time out, he was 97, 98. And last time out, he was so-so. It wasn't him. Kind of showed that arm coming off of injury. So, weather's warm from this day on. This is a cold weather guy. Ryan's out of Colorado. And I think he's 100% healthy, but this is the kind of guy, adding him to the mix late in the year, can pitch in Omaha. There won't be many people that can match up with this, to have this guy. Now, I know you're sitting over there thinking, if you're Wichita, you're thinking, why now? Why now? Well, you got to get this guy an inning. He didn't go at all over the weekend.
Well, just the weird dynamics of a bunch of blowout wins.
That and the fact that this turns out to be a run rule game. Nobody knew that when the game started.
Yeah, just the way it evolved.
Rob tries to run him out as quick as he could and keep the rest of the bullpen sharp. Wow.
Misses to Josh Livingston.
.95. I'm having like flashbacks here. Left-hander for the California Angels, Dave, that was so good.
How long ago?
Oh, 10, 12 years ago. Really good. I mean, in the arm slot, almost identical.
Two and two.
I can see the guy's hair flopping. I can see his arm. He's a blonde guy. Chuck Finley.
Aha. I was about to say him. Yeah, there he is.
I mean, it's kind of like...
And that's a strikeout, and that ends the game as Oklahoma State defeats Wichita State 21-6 in 7 innings via the 10-run rule.